So here we are, Friday night, first night of summer. We dream of summer Fridays all winter long. It's happy hour, you crack open a cocktail, you planned a weekend trip to the pool, you open the grill. Some people, not me, like to golf. It's the start of carefree summer mode. We've been dreaming about this. But it turns out this isn't that kind of Friday. No time for cocktails if you're on the national security team. And here in Washington, and for the president, there's little time for upcoming golf because it's not really carefree summer. It's not carefree summer season this weekend. Today, there's been a summit in Geneva as Europeans try to find a diplomatic off-ramp to potential war in Iran. We're just 24 hours into a 2-week time frame for a potentially pivotal decision from President Trump on Iran, which could push the U.S. into a battle that President Trump has long said he wants to avoid. He spoke a short while ago near the White House.
I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Our Robert Costa reports Trump came up with that 2-week formulation by himself to buy himself more time and see how Americans respond to polling. Meanwhile, threats continue to menace public officials across the country. A week after the assassination of a state legislator in Minnesota, police today arrested a person suspected of threatening Ohio Congressman Max Miller, a former Trump aide. And this first official night of the summer travel season, it is much less than spirited and festive in certain parts of our country where the tariff war has scared off international travelers and international business. Not the summer we dreamt of, at least not yet, but you can still crack open the cocktail, notwithstanding all that. Let's start with the Middle East and those talks in Geneva. We begin tonight with Liz Palmer, who's there. Liz, pretty significant meeting. What was your biggest takeaway? What's the biggest headline?
Well, that the session went twice as long as it was meant to. It was supposed to go for 2 hours, and instead it went 4. This was with the foreign ministers of Britain, Germany and France, a representative from the EU, and also Iran's foreign minister. They huddled together. They apparently broke into smaller groups, came back together again, and then gave a statement, not together. The Europeans were together at the end, and then Foreign Minister Araghchi came out on his own. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Iran is ready to consider diplomacy once again. And once aggression is stopped and the aggressor is held accountable for the crimes committed. In this regard, I made it crystal clear that Iran's defense capabilities are not negotiable.
And he ended up by saying, we are willing to meet again, to keep talking. So that's a glimmer of hope. You know, this is the first diplomatic opening since Israel attacked. And it's ended well in the sense that there may be another one.
If they're interested in meeting again, and they're declaratively saying they're interested in meeting again, does that mean they're trying to build a bridge for the U.S. to be part of the next meeting?
Very much so. In fact, the British foreign minister expressly said, we want the U.S. to come back into these talks. The Iranians, for the moment, are saying, we won't talk to the U.S. until Israel stops bombing. But it was interesting when Foreign Minister Araghchi spoke to the UN earlier. He said, we feel betrayed, diplomatically betrayed. There we were talking to the Americans, negotiating in what he called hopeful negotiations, and Israel attacked. So he characterized those talks as positive, and that may be a little sign to the U.S. that he has an eye toward coming back to the table. But right now, the priority is stopping the Israeli attacks, and maybe that's where Europe comes in. You know, they forge a deal that Israel can accept, and then perhaps there's a ceasefire, a lull, and the U.S. can resume its role. That's the rosiest scenario.
Liz Palmer in Geneva, thank you. H.R. McMaster joins us now, served as National Security Advisor in the first Trump administration. H.R., what did you make of it when the president gave this 2-week time frame for a decision?
God, hey, well, great to be with you. I thought it's the right thing to do, you know, to give the Iranians a chance to realize they could, you know, kind of save themselves here, because there's really not a good way out for the Iranian leadership. And of course, the attacks by Israel have been devastating to the leadership of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, as well as their nuclear and missile programs, and some energy targets, and also some of the mechanisms of control that the Iranian regime uses to repress its own people. So they're in a position of profound weakness, Scott. And Trump gave them a way to at least come to the negotiating table, having made the decision that they're willing to give up uranium enrichment, which I think is going to be a precondition for the negotiations, if there are any.
It's been noted the president frequently uses that 2-week time frame for lots of things. You were in the Oval Office with him when he made decisions. Do you think he's being specific, or do you think he's just using this as a crutch or almost a cliche of a time frame?
I think he's being specific here. He's probably looking at the degree to which Israel can sustain the campaign. He may be looking at time to get certain assets in place in the region, or to evacuate some assets from the region. I think there's a reason for that timeline, a number of reasons potentially for that timeline. And of course, what he said is he could act before then. And what you're already seeing is really a high degree of Iranian intransigence with the interaction of the Iranian foreign minister with European foreign ministers today. And I think the more we see of that kind of regime intransigence, I think the chances of the U.S. joining Israel to destroy these deep buried uranium enrichment sites, I think the chances of that go way up.
As we mentioned a few moments ago in the program, the European leaders and the Iranian leaders are together. They're in Geneva. They're talking, having some type of diplomatic push. Do you think something comes of that without the U.S. as part of it?
No, I don't really think so. I think this is an opportunity, though, for those European foreign ministers, and I imagine this is what they're doing, is to say, hey, the gig is up. I mean, your 4-decade-plus long proxy war has run its course. Iran, sort of backed itself into this corner. The Iranian theocratic dictatorship had it pretty good for many years, being able to escalate on their own terms as they used proxy forces to do their dirty work. And this kind of strategy that was designed maybe to expend every Arab life, right, to achieve their objectives of extending Iran's hegemonic influence across the region, surrounding Israel, and then destroying Israel and killing all the Jews. I mean, that's really what they were trying to do. And to push us out of the region was kind of a first step to doing that. Well, that's failed now. Once they went directly at Israel in April and October of last year, they opened the door. And now they're kind of reaping the whirlwind here, Scott.
Well, you were in the room during previous discussions about Israel and Iran. What do you sense is different now than was 7-8 years ago when the president talks about Iran and Israel?
Well, I think the sense of urgency because of a number of factors. One is the progress that Iran has made toward its nuclear weapon. I think the other is were the kind of the feckless and ineffective policies of the Biden administration. The Biden administration chose not to enforce sanctions on the Iranian regime. That helped them increase their stipends and invest more heavily in the ring of fire around Israel, including Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and especially Hezbollah. They built up their proxy army in Syria during that period of time, and they continued their work toward a nuclear weapon. And of course, it's laughable sometimes when you hear people say, "Well, I'm not sure, is it a peaceful program?" Hey, Scott, there's no reason to enrich uranium to 60% except for a bomb. Anything over 20%. And by the way, there are 23 nations in the world, who have a civilian nuclear program who don't enrich uranium. So I think all of those factors, the sense of urgency, and of course, Scott, you've got to include October 7th of 2023, when I think Ayatollah Khamenei was looking at Israel, was looking at the United States, sensed weakness, and he decided to cross the Destroy Israel task off his to-do list. And of course, he and Hamas and Hezbollah and the Assad regime, and now Iran directly, got a hell of a lot more than they bargained for.
And just twice now you mentioned the word urgency. So let me ask this. We have sources telling CBS News that law enforcement officials here are stepping up their surveillance of possible Iran-backed operatives who are here, who are in the United States. And we all recall the assassination threats made against Trump administration officials from the first term. Do you think that kind of surveillance pays dividends?
Absolutely. It's immensely important. I mean, under the Biden administration, they did a really poor job, of securing the border. And guess where a lot of Iranian terrorist activity is? It's in the border regions between Brazil and Venezuela and other places in South America. So it is very likely that Iran has seeded more of these terrorist cells in the United States. And of course, they've had a worldwide network for years. I mean, they went global in the 1990s. Remember the assassinations that they conducted in Europe in that period of time, the bombing of the Israeli embassy and a Jewish community center in Argentina in 1992 and 1994, the blowing up of a Panamanian airliner in the 1990s as well, abducting and killing, U.S. tourists and so forth. So this is not a new threat but from Iran, and it's of course one of the ways in which Iran might seek to retaliate if the United States joins Israel in the attack on their nuclear weapons and missile program.
It's a lot to watch. Watch there and watch here. H.R. McMaster, have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us.
You too, Scott. Thank you.